We made it to Friday. Yay. Call it Friday. Sharon and my special AAPI Heritage Month spotlight today is none other than Miss Courtney Ozaki. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you.
I love your background.
Oh, thank you. It's Studio Ghibli has these backgrounds available on their website right now. It's the Miyazaki films, and this one is Princess Kaguya Hime.
So I'll show you how to go live and you show me how to do the background, and then we'll be even.
Okay. Deal. I like your background though.
Thank you. So before we get started, I'm going to share a little bit about your bio. So Courtney, you are a third and fourth generation Japanese American and cultural connector and creative producer. You received your master's in performing arts management from Brooklyn College, and you've worked as a dance producer for Joyce Theater Productions. You returned to Colorado, where you were working, or are you currently working at the Lone Tree Arts Center?
No, I was there for about 3 years.
3 years as their operations and business director. And then you founded the Japanese Arts Network. You're a professional Japanese taiko drum musician, which is how I know you, because I see you all the time performing, lots of energy, performing. And you were recently appointed as business manager for the Taiko Community Alliance, a national organization that empowers the people and advances the art of taiko. You founded the monthly gathering of Next Gen JA, and you are secretary for the Tri-State Denver Buddhist Temple Board of Directors. You serve on the board of the Mile High Japanese American Citizens League, and you are on the steering committee for the U.S.-Japan Council's Emerging Leaders Alumni Program. You are one of the founding partners of Haken Denver, an organization that supports Japanese-owned businesses in Colorado. And you must never sleep.
I haven't been sleeping a lot lately, no. A lot of Zoom calls.
A lot, I know.
Yeah. I had 7 yesterday.
It's like, sorry, I can't talk to you because I have a Zoom at this time. This is like our second time trying to connect because we're both so extremely busy. But you're just an amazing musician and athlete.
Oh, thank you. I feel a little out of shape.
I'm sure, like right now, because we're hunkered down, but so many people know you and have seen you in the community. But for those people who don't know what taiko drumming is, explain what taiko drumming is.
Yeah, so taiko, actually the word taiko means drum in Japanese, and taiko drumming, started 2,000 years ago in Japan, but it was originally used in religious ceremonies and in wartime to scare away opponents in battle and to lift spirits up during wartime. And then in the 50s, taiko became an art form. It was developed as an art form, kumidaiko, by Daihachi Oguchi, who actually was a jazz musician in Japan. And then it came to the United States as a performing art, was brought here by Seiji Tanaka, who formed San Francisco Taiko Dojo in the 1960s. And so taiko is, it's a very highly choreographed drum art form. So there's a lot of movement, it's very athletic, and it's a traditional Japanese art form that's evolved over time, or traditional Japanese cultural practice that evolved over time into an art form. And now it's spread all across America and the world. So many taiko players all across the country. And even within Colorado, we have multiple groups here. So, yeah.
So I went to a performance. I've been to many performances, but one in particular that sticks out in my mind. I went to the Botanic Gardens, and there was a performance there. And just to understand and hear how a composition is written, it's very impressive. It's not, I'm a musician, so I really could appreciate all of the components that went into not only writing the piece, but the choreography that goes into that. Do you also compose and write pieces?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm still learning sort of what my writing style is. A lot of the pieces we play are actually pieces that were written by Gary Tsujimoto, who is my uncle, and he's one of the founding members of One World Taiko. And he also composed quite a few pieces for San Jose Taiko when he was there. But we have dabbled in a lot of our taiko pieces for my group, Mirai Daiko, have been collaborative. And even the most recent piece that I guess I wrote was very collaborative, but it was taiko hip hop. So an
I
MC.
remember that.
Yeah, and then you probably saw it at the Sakura Foundation dinner, right? Yeah, and then and actually we added on clarinet recently and folk dance element. So yeah.
That's really exciting because for those of us who are musicians, that fusion, how you as a young person are learning how to fuse the old music with hip hop and modern music and even instrumentation, that's so creative. What inspired you to go that direction rather than just constantly doing traditional music that's already written, to go into creating something new?
I think because taiko is my language and my music, in musical instrument, and I really wanted to collaborate with these people who I greatly admired. So like my friend Chris, who goes by MC32, I've wanted to collaborate with him for a very long time. I've known him for years. I used to see him do open mic nights, and I loved his flow. And then we became friends, and I loved him as a human. And so he came up with this concept that I really loved about a woman who had immigrated from Japan to the United States, and she was homesick for Japan. And so that's what we wrote this piece about together. So it was natural. I have a deep roots in 90s hip hop, and it's hip hop is one of my favorite genres. So I always gravitate towards hip hop beats anyway. If I'm just messing around and making up a beat, it tends to be more like a hip hop beat than a rock beat, so that was where that came into play. And then when we added in recently the clarinet, we kind of expanded the piece to have more of a narrative. And we did it for the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts Luncheon. And so we wanted to really capture, I run this Japanese arts network, and we wanted to capture sort of the meaning behind the mission behind that organization, which is to support Japanese artists in America in whatever way, shape, or form that might take. And so we incorporated a short video from the filmmaker Bruce Tetsuya, and that kind of set up the story for the woman. She's catching the subway. She's in New York, and she's catching the subway, and she puts in her headphones. And then Chris gave sort of a narrative, and then we went into the song that reminded her of Japan, which was Akatombo, which is one of my favorite songs from childhood, Japanese songs. And my cousin, Margaret Ozaki Graves, who's a soprano, sang Akatombo, but in her classical voice. And then we had the clarinet. And so we thought this really interesting transition would be to go then into this hip hop piece that we'd already created together, and to have sort of like reminiscent sort of flourishes, or natsukashi, like memories of some of these Japanese songs from her homeland throughout the piece that the clarinet would play. So it was kind of a process to get to there, but I think I've always just gravitated towards being interested in collaborating. I have very diverse musical interests, and I have a lot of friends who are musicians and artists as well. And I'm always more interested in exploring how to build on a musical idea or a theme or a concept by collaborating versus adhering to a strict sort of structure, I guess.
I love the stories that go behind the performance. You know, so much in Japanese culture has a meaning. You know, it's talking about gardens, right? The Japanese gardens, and everything has a meaning. And to hear the thought that goes into your performances and your creation, it just makes so much sense that that's fused together. So, what's a typical rehearsal week look like for you? How many hours before COVID were you practicing, and what type of training do you go through to become a taiko performer?
Well, recently it has not been actually, I haven't really been training like regularly in taiko. I've been pretty focused on work and community engagement. So I haven't really been playing like a typical, I guess, professional taiko player would be if they were playing regularly. But when I used to play regularly, we would rehearse twice a week for 3 hours each. About I think that would be pretty typical. Twice a week for 3 hours each.
So, what's your diet like? Is it any different, or you just eat normal, or, you know, how do you prepare for that physically?
Um, healthy as possible.
Yeah.
Healthy as possible. I don't know. I honestly probably am not the best person to ask. I think some people are more diligent and conscious of what they're eating and more disciplined, I guess, with the taiko. But you definitely burn off a lot of energy. So we had a lot of post practice meals, and that's sort of a big tradition of ours. My friend Tyrone jokes with us that we're the like taiko group that likes to eat.
I don't know any Asian who doesn't like to eat. Asian, we're gonna eat.
Yeah.
We're talking before we went live. You're like, yeah, I just went and got my mom and dad some food.
Yeah. But I mean, like, yeah, definitely it burns off a lot of energy. I know for one point in my life, my aunt and uncle, One World Taiko, invited a few of us, my cousins and I, to come play with them in Dubai. So we did a 2-month residency there where we lived there and worked there. And we were playing, that's the most I've ever played in a regular work week or work day. We played 3 times a day, 6 days a week. So I was ravenous when we finished performing, you know, and I found things that really helps keep my energy up. Like there were these sesame seed bars from Egypt that I ate a lot of while we were there. But yeah, you have to find what's gonna sustain you. We ate a lot of power bars. Like when I was growing up, even my aunt used to always feed us power bars.
Yeah, I'm so amazed when I see a performance and I think, wow, that takes a lot of energy to do, you know, an hour performance for a gathering, or even half of that amount of time. Just the physical, to remember everything. I mean, it's just amazing how athletic you guys are. So my question is, I know that you went to school in Broomfield. You're 3rd and 4th generation Japanese American. It was you and Jenna in Broomfield.
Yeah, there were a few others, but yeah, it was.
Hi, Jenna, by the way, if you're watching.
Hi, Jenna.
But what inspired you to dig so deep into your history and culture? You know, because everybody has their path of how involved they get with their historical language and the foods, and with being a part of a performing troupe. I mean, that takes a lot of dedication. So talk about your journey into really delving into your culture.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate in that it was deeply ingrained in me from the beginning. I attended the Denver Buddhist Temple as a child, and my family was there, and my cousins, and you know, there's a rich Japanese American community that is part of the temple. It doesn't completely make it up, but there are Japanese traditions because the temple was formed by that Japanese American community many years ago. And so being around there and participating in, like the Cherry Blossom Festival every year. Also, my family on both sides celebrated Japanese traditions, or like my grandmother would make saba shioyaki, which is my favorite meal. I would eat a lot of Japanese foods because of my grandmother making those. And then my other grandmother had this tradition of the big New Year's Day feast, and she would she made chow mein because that was her tradition, to make chow mein, even though that's not Japanese. And then we'd have sashimi and all these things. So actually that tradition has been carried on by my father and I since my grandmother passed, and we make that big meal every year now. But I definitely have been fortunate to be surrounded by it all the time throughout my childhood. And then also I'm very, very grateful to my aunt and uncle for sharing Taiko art form with me, because that only made me further invested in, in exploring Japanese culture and cultural arts. And so, yeah, I think I've just always been around it. I grew up going to Sakura Square all the time, like every weekend, going to Pacific Mercantile. Actually, my origin story is there because my parents were introduced by the owner of Pacific Mercantile. They were set up on a blind date. So it's so like at my entire being is kind of deeply ingrained and invested in our community here in Colorado and Denver.
Well, we're so fortunate to have you as a young person in the next generation continuing on the legacy. We've had a mix of people in the community that I've been interviewing, the older generation, inspiring the younger generation like you, and you're just so bright and so smart and have so much vitality. Like, we need to make sure that even the younger children than you and I understand. So during this time of COVID where we're strapped in, what is something that's bringing you joy and putting a smile on your face?
I am definitely brought joy by my cousin has been organizing these family gatherings, because honestly, I know I mentioned that my family all went to the temple, and then a lot of us left for a while, or we're not going as frequently. But now that my cousins have kids, they take them there for Sunday school. And so I'm used to seeing my nieces and nephews quite a lot. And so it's joyful to me because my cousin has set up these family Zoom hangouts that happen on Sundays often, and we play. It's just refreshing because I have so many Zoom calls and meetings for my various jobs, and this is just a really fun way to connect with the kiddos and creatively too. So we've been doing something called, I think it's called Drawful. It's like Pictionary. We played this last time, and it was hilarious. And it's something that everyone can participate doing. There's not too much of a learning curve regarding technology, and it's just really fun to be able to still connect with those kiddos and with my other relatives as well. It's nice to use the Zoom medium for something other than a meeting once in a while.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Too, actually, this is
say that again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, this is nice also because
I know.
Yeah.
I love getting to sit down and talk with you. It seems like I'm getting to know people a whole lot deeper through Zoom during this time. And Courtney, thank you so much for taking time out of your uber busy day and week.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me.
You've been a delight, and my best to your mom and dad. And stay well, stay healthy, keep that smile on your face, and we'll chat soon.
Okay, thanks, Priscilla. Take care.